What is up, everybody, and how's it going? I'm Alex Goldstick, and you are listening to the Spring Forward podcast. Not much business to take care of on the Spring League front right now. We will be announcing updates for the Spring League Showcase in the next week, so stay tuned on that front. This week's episode features an interview with defensive end Karter Schult. Karter tore up the Spring League, and though no such awards were given out, could certainly have been named the defensive MVP of the league in Austin. The University of Northern Iowa alum has since signed with the Carolina Panthers. Let's get to our interview with Karter. Karter Schult is a defensive end from the University of Northern Iowa. He spent time with the Cleveland Browns before joining the Spring League in Austin this past April. After the Spring League, he was invited and participated in minicamp with both the Minnesota Vikings and the Carolina Panthers, and ultimately signed with the Panthers. We now welcome on to Spring Forward, Karter Schult.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. It's great to be on here.
So, congratulations are in order, but before we get to your NFL and Spring League experience, let's start at the beginning. You're from a very small town in Iowa called Tripoli. Am I pronouncing that right?
It's pronounced Tripola.
Tripola.
It's pronounced not the way that it actually looks. So.
Tripola. So Tripola has a population of just over 1,300 people. And because of the size of the town you grew up in, you played Eightman football in high school. But can you just tell us about your early memories with football and your relationship to the game, in and of yourself, but also as it pertains to this tiny town in Iowa?
It started, obviously, when I was a kid. I grew up really close to the only park that was in our town. The town kids would meet up there, and, they'd play all different sports depending on the season. But I had an older brother who was about 3 years older than me, and that's when I started getting into football. He'd take me down to the park with the older kids. I'd kind of get beat up on when I was down there. Basically, that started my love of football, and then I eventually got into organized football when I was in fifth grade. I think that was the first time I played tackle football with pads and stuff on. I didn't really know what I was doing. But all I remember from that is not a lot of rules, just basically tackle the guy with the ball. And that's where I got my love for, being a defensive player.
And the entire time you're playing organized football in a town of this size, is it 8-man? Are there any 11-on-11 options?
Actually, I played 11-man football all the way up until my junior year. So, Pee Wee football and all that, I was playing 11-man. The only time I played 8-man were my junior and senior seasons in high school.
Well, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but those junior and senior years, you made first team All-State both times.
Yeah, I did.
So what were the 8-man high school days like for you? I know you moved around the field a lot. You played both sides of the ball, even kicker at one point for your high school team.
Yeah, it was actually a great time. It reminded, when I talk to guys about it, I kind of call it arcade football. It's almost like it's higher paced, high scoring. I mean, there is defense, but it's super fun. I didn't really know anything about it until that first year, and then as a defensive player, it was great because they made the fields a little bit smaller. They took a couple linemen out, so less people to try and block me. I really enjoyed playing 8-man football.
So you get first team All-State twice. There's got to be people knocking on your door, but take us through high school recruiting because you ultimately chose the University of Northern Iowa, which is just 30 minutes down the road in Cedar Falls.
UNI was a very special place for me because I did grow up really close to them. But in high school, I wasn't really getting a lot of attention. I got attention from D3 schools and community colleges, JUCOs, D2 schools here and there. And then my junior year, my team made it to state and we played in the Dome. So that's when UNI first saw me because when I played in there, I was probably 6'2", 235, 40 pounds already my junior year. And 8-man, it's really rare. So I was I was really just like mowing down kids. I remember I was playing fullback and running back, and I was just running kids over. And after the season, that's when I had my first contact with UNI. And then that summer leading into my senior year, you know, I was going to camps, Iowa State camp, Iowa camp, UNI camp. I didn't really travel outside the state for it because I knew I wanted to stay fairly close to home. I was getting recruited to Iowa State a little bit, but they didn't really give me the time of day. And then it was between a couple schools, depending on what I wanted to do. And UNI, they were really late in the process. I remember, I think it was already into the new year when they were, you know, inviting me on that official visit. And then eventually on that official visit, they offered me, and I don't think Coach Farley, he offered me, and I could barely get it out of his mouth before I accepted the offer. So that was a dream opportunity for me, so I just looked at it.
As an Iowan and not as a football player, where do your allegiances lie at this time? I mean, now I assume you're UNI through and through, but you know, are you growing up an Iowa or an Iowa State fan, or is UNI so close that it's always been them?
Honestly, yeah. I was always a UNI fan just because when I was a kid, I'd go to their games. I wouldn't really make it to Iowa State or Iowa games because I lived 3 hours or more. So I'd always go to UNI games. I loved the Panthers. I liked the colors and just a little bit of family bias, I suppose. My dad wasn't a fan of the Hawkeyes or the Cyclones either, so I didn't really care for either of those teams.
So UNI might be best known nationally for a couple of NCAA tournament runs in basketball over recent years, but they do compete in football at the FCS level. And you were part of the football team while David Johnson was there, who's now a star with the Arizona Cardinals. How was your team over the 5 years you were part of it? You redshirted your freshman year, so if it's not a quick thing to do, but sum up your college experience and your college football career. Yeah.
Well, when I got there, obviously one of the reasons I committed is because of the high caliber football that they play at Northern Iowa. When I got there, they had just won 2 or 3 conference championships in a row, so expectations were high. I knew it was going to be a place where I was really going to be challenged. And my redshirt year, we were a really young team, didn't do so well, but I redshirted, so it wasn't. I mean, I was just basically trying to learn how to play football at the college level. Redshirt freshman year, I got a little bit of playing time. I played on special teams. I was learning a lot still. Team did fairly well. I think we made it into the second round of the playoffs. And then my sophomore year is when I really started playing. I played every game and then started about 3/4 of them. Started to break out a little bit. I was definitely starting to put things together, getting sacks here and there, tackles for loss, like playing with the older guys. Also, I think we went to the second round of the playoffs. And then my junior year was my real breakout year. I led the conference, and I was top in the NCAA with my tackles for losses and my sacks. That year, our team was really good. I think that was we made it to the quarterfinals and lost a really close game. And then my senior year, I obviously had a really good year, but team-wise, we barely missed the playoffs. It was kind of heartbreaking, but my college experience at UNI was the greatest college experience I could imagine. I mean, I would never take it back. It was a dream come true to go to that university. That means so much to me now. So that's basically as quickly as I could sum up my college experience.
Now, your college experience also overlapped with a certain other Missouri Valley Conference, maybe Super Bowl winning quarterback in Carson Wentz, and you put him on his back a couple times. What does it mean to you to see the success he's having, but also know what it was like to go up against him in college?
Yeah, it's awesome because at the time, we knew he was really good, and we knew that our conference produces talent like that. I mean, as you can see with David Johnson and Carson Wentz, just for a couple. But it was known he was really good when we were playing him. Just didn't know how good. And now the success he's having really reiterates what we were going up against every time we played them. And it's a real honor for me personally. I know I don't know exactly how many times, but I would say about 4 or 5 times that I got to sack him. It's pretty cool when I look back on it, knowing that I got to play against that type of talent and also got to get some sacks on him.
Well, hopefully it's not the last time you play against him, and you're with an NFL team now, so come September, we hope that's the case. But in your senior year, you won the Buck Buchanan Award, which is equivalent of the defensive MVP for the FCS division. That year you led the country with 17 sacks. And for those not familiar with the FCS landscape, what were your odds going into the season to win that award, and who was your competition once you got to the end of the season with the kind of numbers you put up?
At UNI, I think I was the first Buck Buchanan Award winner for that award. So I know I was up against real odds, but I really had my eyes set on that. After my junior year, when I had 14 sacks, I knew I wanted to progress even farther. And then by the end of the season, I knew I was competing with one other guy in my conference who was a linebacker who was a tackle machine, and then there was another defensive lineman, I believe, from Sam Houston State, who just got drafted this year. At the time, I didn't want to assume anything, but after it was all said and done, the season was over. Just looking at my stats, I knew that I had a really good shot, if not a lock, but I just didn't want to take anything for granted. Obviously, when it came time in January, they announced that I'd won it.
And we know you've got, a nose for the quarterback. You had 17 sacks that season. You finished your college career with 31 sacks over 4 years. And just to give people an idea of what that number is like, I looked up first-round defensive end draft picks over the last 2-3 seasons who played all 4 years in college. So there's actually not that many of them, but Bradley Chubb at NC State, 25 sacks, was drafted in the first round this year. DeForest Buckner at Oregon only had 18. So obviously every player plays under different circumstances, but what is it within you that gets to the quarterback so frequently?
I think my MO, just my entire college career, was just relentless effort. I mean, the early part of my career, I was not very technical, but my effort was like I was 100% on every play, no matter what, even if I was out there every single play. And I just wouldn't be denied, power, speed, whatever it was. Whenever I saw the quarterback holding the ball, I was determined that I was going to get there. And then by the time I got older, my senior year, my junior year, I still had that relentless pursuit and passion and effort, but I added technique to it, and that's really what helped me, blow those numbers up.
We talked about your senior year, obviously with the Buchanan Award, huge honor. You also were invited to the East-West Shrine Game in Tampa Bay, and you were a finalist for the William Campbell Trophy, which is nicknamed the Academic Heisman. What of those experiences, I guess, gave you sort of the confidence that you could get to the next level of football?
I think the East-West Shrine Game was, in terms of football-wise, gave me the most confidence that I could play at the next level, just because I was going against other college athletes who were going to be drafted and who, were in the same position as me. The William Campbell Trophy thing was great and all, a really huge accomplishment, but it really didn't have a ton to do with football per se. But when I was down in Tampa Bay, going against some of the best college guys, and I was having success, I knew that, once I got to the NFL, that I could continue having success because I could do it against that kind of talent level. For the most part, my entire college career, people had, scouts coming out had been doubting, my competition level. So when I went to Tampa Bay, it really helped my confidence, and it helped kind of silence that notion that, I couldn't play against a higher competition level.
Now, you did go undrafted in 2017, but you brought that confidence to your first taste of the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. and you were with them from minicamp all the way to the end of the preseason when you were let go. But what was the first taste of the NFL like? Did not making it ultimately leave you deflated or wanting more? And now we have more information to look back and say that it was worth it given your current circumstances. But at the time, what did that Cleveland experience feel like?
It was such a whirlwind because you're a rookie and you don't really know what's going on. I mean, you know how to play football, but you just don't know. It's so much different than college. You're trying to figure out a new place, in Cleveland, trying to figure out new playbook, new teammates, a little bit faster game, I would say. And it was just such a whirlwind trying to, learn and all the things combined. It was a great experience, obviously. I had a great time, met a lot of great people. But I would just say, I think it's that way for a lot of rookies, if not all rookies. It's just, it's flying by your face before you know it. The season's over. So
that brings us to the spring league. How did you find out about the league and then ultimately get accepted to play in it?
I had heard about it the first year that it was, that it ran. I had a couple buddies who went to it, and then my agent had said something about it because, in January I still wasn't getting any workouts or anything, and obviously I knew it probably wasn't going to change unless I did something. And so the spring league was a great opportunity. My agent knew the CEO. We got into it, and then I just knew my mission and my goal was to go there and dominate and, turn some heads, get some opportunities like these mini camps. And clearly it really worked out in my favor.
Yeah, and I read an interview with you in the Iowa Gazette where you expressed sort of your frustration and surprise that you weren't in the NFL, especially given your performance in Cleveland, which did go well. But you came into the spring league and absolutely dominated. In game 2, you were the player of the game. I think you had a strip sack, you had another sack, a bunch of tackles for loss. Was that burning desire for the NFL or feeling like you should be there your motivating factor, or were you looking to get something more specific out of the league to get onto tape?
I think it was just a collection of it all. I mean, it was such a relief because that entire time after I was let go by the Browns, it was just like anybody who was being released and, who wants to do something but you're not allowed to, or what it may be. Like, I knew that I could play football, but I just wasn't getting the opportunity. And it was such a sense of relief after both the games. I told you so, it was like an I told you so moment. And it was a burning desire that left me wanting more from the NFL because I had a really good preseason with Cleveland, but I never got any opportunity after that, and that was a really hard pill to swallow. I was bitter for a while, and then I kind of just made my mind up that the spring league was the best opportunity, and when I go there, I'm not going to leave any stone unturned, and I'm going to show these scouts, these teams that I belong and I deserve an opportunity. And so after it was all said and done, it was just a huge sense of relief, pride. Like, hey, I know I can play at this level, at a high level. It was actually probably one of the best experiences I've had.
You had a common teammate in Cleveland and in the spring league in Jamal Marcus, who actually recently just attended minicamp with the Jets after his own spring league experience. Was there anyone else that you recognized coming into the spring league, or people that had been around football circles with you?
Yeah, that's another great thing. I knew quite a few guys, and I met some guys and became good friends with them. I knew another guy, Breon Creer. I think he signed with the team in Canada. I knew him from college. My roommate was from Iowa as well. I didn't really know him, but I had seen multiple guys who were there in other camps, and like you said, Jamal. Me and Jamal, became friends in Cleveland, and then so seeing him again was a pretty cool treat.
So you tore up the spring league, and you didn't get one, but you got two NFL minicamp invites. As we noted in the intro, you were with Minnesota and then with Carolina. We have talked to guys before that have been in minicamps, but how do you do two minicamps, and how do you get invited to both of them?
Yeah, so the NFL usually they'll have rookie minicamps in 2 different weekends. So the first weekend, some teams will run it, and then, they'll send their rookies and stuff home for a week, and then they'll come back the week after for OTAs and stuff with the veterans. And then other teams will just go that second weekend, and they'll just start OTAs right away. So it really just depends on team-by-team thing. And, I got invited by multiple teams, and we just kind of chose the best fit for me defensively and the ones that, maximized my opportunity going back-to-back from Minnesota to Carolina. So
between Minnesota and Carolina, did you feel like you performed differently in those camps and, Carolina led to a contract and Minnesota didn't? Or Carolina was purely a football decision where you think it gives you the best odds for that week 1 roster spot?
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit different scenarios. We knew going into Minnesota they didn't have a lot of roster space. I think their roster was actually full. I was just hoping to maybe steal a spot. I actually performed really, really well in Minnesota, almost perfectly, in my opinion, but I knew that their defensive line was really, really solid, and, they drafted a couple defensive linemen as well. So even though I performed really well, I had conversations with their management and front office, and it basically said, you did amazing and whatnot, but we just don't have room. Keep your phone on. If we need someone, you'll be the first one we call. So, and then heading into Carolina, I knew that they had more room. They weren't full on their roster, and they had spots open. And when I had talked to them, they seemed a little bit more optimistic about potentially signing me. And so my performance was about the same. I did really well, and that's what led to the contract opportunity that I got from them.
Is there anything specific that you're taking from your experience last summer with the Browns and bringing into Carolina this year with the Panthers to increase your odds of getting past the preseason? Or is there just so much uncontrolled stuff in football that all you can do is perform?
I mean, just last year to this year, there's a lot of things I can take from what happened in Cleveland. First of all, the NFL, it is a business, and I did learn that last year, and I know that, but it is a performance-based business. Going into Cleveland, I thought maybe my college resume would matter, but it really didn't matter. It was all about basically, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing for me now? It's a performance-based business. I got that. But going into this year, just having a year of experience under my belt has really helped me, not only physically, that I've been training for a year to do this, but mentally, the mental aspect of it, I'm so much more, I would say, experienced and mature about the whole process. And those are big things going into, OTAs and training camp, because I know how I felt as a rookie, and now I won't feel that way this year because I kind of know what to expect.
Carolina must have been out in force in Austin at the Spring League because in addition to you, there were 4 other Spring League participants that also got invited to Panthers camp. That was Quintarius Eightman, who also got signed, running backs Joey Iasefa and Khalif Phillips, and then D-back James Kane. When you got to Carolina, did you recognize those guys as having been in Austin, or did you all know sort of coming out of Austin that the Panthers had spoken to you on site?
I think I knew through social media a couple people, but then when I got there, I obviously recognized their faces, and we chatted it up, and then Quintarius is still here in Carolina, so that's pretty cool.
Now as a signed NFL player, what does your summer look like?
Well, right now we're going through OTAs for another 2 or 3 weeks, After that, we get about a month off from mid-June to mid-July. And then after like mid to end July, we report for training camp. Panthers training camp is in Spartanburg, South Carolina at Wofford University. So that's basically what my summer looks like. That month off is going to be a big opportunity, a big time for everyone to go home and, continue to train, but get to see, their families, or if they live away from their families and whatnot before the long season starts.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it. We know you've been on a football whirlwind, since the end of March, at least in this go-round, but, literally since high school. So I'm very happy for you that it's paying off, and, the Spring League and all of us here are rooting hard for you, come August and September time.
Well, thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to be on here and share my story.
All right. That will bring us to the end of episode 16. If Karter performs this summer as well as he did in Austin, we're sure to see him on the Panthers' Week 1 roster. Fingers crossed. More to come as the Spring League ramps up planning for the showcase. You can follow the Spring League on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Spring League. You can follow me on Twitter at AGStick and on Instagram at ThisIsMyOtherIG. All music was provided to Spring Forward by Joshua Rosner. Till next time, later.